Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Coffee Talk Her Story. And I'm excited today that I have a guest who's so young and beautiful, and she loves Jesus. And she's going to share all about her love for Jesus and all about her story in a second. But before we get into Neelam's story, I want to remind you that we are United Works. And so don't forget to like and subscribe our podcast so that we can YouTube channel so that we can get more subscribers, more views, all this stuff. I'm still new to all this language, but I'm working on it. So subscribe, 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 and share, share, share. And also, if you want to know more about what we do, you can find us at unitedworks.org, and there you will find us and what we do and all the great things that's happening in our world. So we're going to go ahead and switch gears and start with our guest, Neelam. Neelam, I want to welcome you to Coffee Talk Her Story.
Oh, thank you. I'm really excited to be here. And I heard a little bit about you, but it was enough to get me interested and
Okay.
excited about what you're doing.
We both share a mutual friend, Delia, and so Delia was the one that connected us. In case you guys don't realize, but Neelam's actually in Mexico, so we would have never met because I'm in Texas and she's
Mm.
in Mexico, so we have never met. But it was through our mutual friend Delia that we're actually here today. I'm so excited. So Neelam, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, like where you're, you're who you are, just a little bit before we get into your story, what you're
All
currently
right.
doing?
I am 29 years old. I was born in Mexico. We moved to Houston for 2 years when I was little. That's where the Lord found us, then moved back. And I went to a school for missionary kids. So I grew up learning, like practicing English there. And I've always loved horses, so it's it was in my dream to study like something that had to do with horses. And I had the opportunity to go to Asbury University and study there. Came back to Mexico, started working, and that was fun. Then, right now I'm studying to get physical therapy, and currently the Lord has been opening doors to maybe do missions in Spain.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Spain. That is fabulous.
yeah,
I've been to Spain, I think twice. Again, this is so long ago. I'm really, sometimes I feel like I'm not telling the truth because it seems like a whole nother life. But I went to
yeah.
Malaga, the capital, whatever that is. I can't remember the capital. It was Barcelona, I
Hmm.
think, and then in Madrid because I did missions like you when I was in my early 20s. And so, but Spain is a beautiful country, very good food. People are
Mm.
very nice, very friendly. So that's exciting. I think I heard you say your parents were missionaries. Is that what you said?
No, well, we had moved to Houston for my dad's job, and
Okay.
that's where we got connected with Christ. And then coming back, my parents they liked the American like school system,
Okay.
and a friend connected them to the missionary school, like
Okay.
school
Oh,
for
okay.
missionary
Very,
kids.
very good. I loved how you said, because you said when I think you said when Christ found us, and
Mm,
that's my word too. 'Cause I always feel like that God found me. I wasn't really looking for Him,
mm,
but
yeah.
I really love that. And so, do you have any siblings at all?
Yeah, I'm the oldest of three. I have my brother who lives in South Carolina with his wife. And they're expecting, which I'm excited.
Okay.
And my little sister, she's 25. My brother's no, she's gonna turn 25 this year,
Okay.
and my brother's 27. Hmm.
Okay, so you definitely have a good sized family. Well, that's awesome. So I
Yeah.
think I want to go ahead and talk about more of your salvation story, more about whatever you want to share about how did you come to know Christ for your own self?
Mm.
You can go from there.
All right. So, as I said, we had moved to Houston for 2 years. And in that first year, the school we were at was bilingual. So they offered in the afternoons classes for Hispanic parents to learn English.
Hmm.
And at the same time, they had a couple taking care of the kids. And this couple did a good news club for us. So they were teaching us like Bible stories. My mom, she, w- my mom and dad were both Catholic. They weren't like more like culturally Catholic than like
Okay.
devoted Catholics.
Okay.
But my mom's like, well, they're learning about the Bible, so I don't see anything wrong with it. So I just remember, I don't remember the day. I was 7, but I remember like the day that we decided it was my brother and I. They told us the story of the cross, and for me, I don't know how I would say it, or if it would make sense, but I remember we would go to like mass, in back in Mexico, and I didn't feel like at peace. Like I never felt like that it was right. Um, but when I heard the story of Jesus and when he went to the cross, for me it like just clicked. Like it just made sense. I was like, yeah. And when they asked us, like the kids, if we wanted to follow Jesus and accept him in our hearts, my brother and I raised our hands. I think we were the only two that did it that day. My brother was 4, and I could say that that's where I started my walk or my journey with him. It
Okay.
has had its up and downs, but it it was like that decision that for me was just everything just made sense. Like when the puzzle pieces come together and it's
Yeah.
just, oh, I get the picture.
Yeah, and that's something that's important because I think that it's hard to, you said it's hard to explain, but it is hard to explain because
Hmm.
salvation is personal. Even though we all
Yeah.
serve the same God, we all have the same Savior. How He's introduced into our lives is really different. I mean, I also heard you say that your parents were Catholic, and then when you went to Mass, that it didn't quite fit. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, like for me, the idols were scary. Like I've never liked to like it just felt that they weren't like it just didn't sit right with me. I was just
Yeah.
like they look they're scary, and just like the atmosphere of it was for me it felt really dark.
Okay.
And so like I remember we would, yeah, we would go to mass, we would dress up and stuff, but for me it didn't make sense. I remember also my great grandma gave me a she gifted me a like one was Virgin Mary, and they hung it in my room.
Hmm.
And I just remember like every time I would walk in my room, I would like stare at it and just walk out. Like I don't know, it was just that feeling for me that it's like I don't think this is right.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I think I'm from Louisiana, and a lot of people are Catholic in Louisiana.
mm,
And it's funny things, I grew up Baptist, so I really don't know
okay.
much about Catholicism. But I remember one time my sisters and I were in my grandmother's neighborhood, and we went inside the Catholic church. And the only thing I really remember, it was really solemn, kind of, quiet,
Mm-hmm.
and they had this smell, I guess, the incense or whatever. I still remember that, and so that's the only thing I really know about it. And I definitely know about Mary and all the other saints and things like that, but I don't know much about it to know. I know there's a difference between
Yeah.
what we believe and what they believe, but I think it's interesting that you would be able to feel that difference even as a young child, and
Mm-hmm.
since this is not for me, even though I don't really know why. And so I was actually thinking about this today, Neelam, that I'm sorry about the sneeze here.
Okay.
I got a little accident with my arm, so it's
Oh
all wrapped.
no.
But anyways, I was thinking about this today. It's really hard to interview people who've been Christians for as young as you,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes it's like your whole life is woven with Jesus, and so you don't. A lot of times it does it. We don't know how to separate it when life starts to happen, because as you get older, then different things starts to happen. But you still have Jesus there with you, and so I guess my question for you, because Jesus found you so young, how did you hold on to him as you kept getting older and life started to change, or how did life change?
Okay. So I think I don't want to say that I feel kind of like the older brother in the parable of the prodigal son, kind of like that. I've always kind of grown up, but it wasn't like even that I was born in a Christian home. Like through that that same couple that brought my brother and I to Jesus, that he used them to bring my parents, and later on my sister, she was 2 at the time. But I remember that the Lord just surrounded me with women, not just my parents, well, my mom specifically, but like with women who kind of mentored me in a way. Um, I remember, for example, when I was like 13, I had decided because it was like that age where I started liking boys, I started like having crushes and stuff, and there was this older girl who I like admired, like she was like my older sister, spiritual older sister, and she talked about like guarding our hearts. I had also like read a book about like a Christian book about like what it means to date and stuff. And so I remember there I made that promise to the Lord of like, Lord, I want to wait for like the man you have for me. Um, it's been it's changed for sure. Like I think in a way it's growing up with like in the word, um sometimes we get a little like I don't know if the word's right, like lukewarm, like
Mhm.
comfortable.
Mhm.
And so I remember one of our pastors, he's like a spiritual father to my parents. Mm, sorry, my throat's getting dry.
That's okay.
And so he, we were in a small church and we had Bible study. In the morning, we had service, and then in the afternoon, we had another Bible study. Around like when I was 12, there was no one to take care of the kids or like give class. So I remember this pastor, he's like our grandfather. Um, he's like, why don't you do it? And I was like, why? I was like, I'm too young. I don't like kids. Like that was my excuse.
Yeah.
And he's like, you don't know like when the Lord, how the Lord wants to use you, right? And he's like, and whatever you've been taught, like all the stories you've been told, they're treasures that you need to share with other kids. So that was like one step of faith that I think I took in the sense of knowing how to serve, like actually living it and not just being like going with my parents because they're serving and I'm just like tagging along. And so yeah, from there, I had a love for kids, especially like 3 and 4 year olds. They would like follow me everywhere. We did BBS at that church because it was so small. Like the teenagers were helping out with like doing like the dancing and the classes and art and all that. So that was fun. Um, then as I was like growing up, deciding on what I wanted to study. As I said, I always loved horses, so I was like, oh, like I really want something. Like I want to find a Christian college with that.
Mhm.
And um, I literally looked up Christian college with equine program, and two colleges came up: Asbury University and Houghton. And I don't know why I felt like the Lord like was putting in my heart to do Asbury in Kentucky. And it was funny story. Like Delia and Peter were gonna go back on furlough, and as they were packing, she found a mug that had Asbury College on it. And
Wow.
she's like, I don't know anyone from there, but I feel
Mhm.
like this is for you. And for me, it was like a sign from the Lord, like this is where I want you to go.
Mhm.
So I felt like my like through my childhood years, my teenage years, and up to college, like I was walking really close to him. In college, it was definitely for me. I want to say a trial, but like type of test. Being far from home,
Mhm.
I'm like super close to my family. I was falling into a type of depression. I made a lot of friends, but for me, it was just really hard. Um, it was even to the point that I was starting to develop like an eating disorder.
Mhm.
Um, from from that of like being outside of like my family bubble. Even though I was going to a Christian school, there was a lot of people that were not Christian that attended that
Mhm.
school or who said they were Christian, but they didn't live that life. And so it was like learning to surround myself with people who would like hold me up. Um, and just also focusing on what the Lord was calling me there to do, because it just felt like a lot of things were happening, and so like I wanted to hang out with friends, but I also wanted to do good in school, but I also miss my family, so it was like kind of like a roller coaster of emotions. Um,
I think you kind of hit on something, because at like 7 to 15, 16, 17, it's just a normal stuff. Like you say, let's start like boys, and you're worried about if you
mm,
have a pimple on your face or things like that. But when you start to transition into college, and especially if you go away like you did, um, all these other things start to come up. And I think again, I think
mm,
sometimes, and you kind of said it, that I think you probably didn't realize that those things were even there, or why you feeling
yes,
sad, or why you feeling depressed, or why you worrying about your body or the body image and things like that.
hmm,
But I think that it, it, it's a normal progression, but I think it's not normally shared or talked about a lot, because especially if you're going to a
yes,
Christian university, Christian, and I know that again, I went to a Christian university, and I know that range is like people are there because they were forced to be there, or parents think, oh, it's a safe environment, it's in a Christian school or whatever. So you have this range, and so you standing out as this committed Christian, but you have these other people who are like, yeah, okay, whatever. Let's go down and party and drink, or whatever we're gonna do,
mm, hmm,
And so I think that's where a lot of Christian people, including myself, because I became Jesus found me when I was 12, a little bit older,
mm,
but I think it was in those 20s, probably a little bit older, where I started to really question, why am I here? And who is God? And does he really care
yes,
about me? And so I think what you're saying is the same thing. And I think family is so important. I think a lot of times teenagers don't realize that, because they don't realize how much the family nucleus is holding everything together until they get out of it. And then they realize that friends are fickle. Friends are not enough, that you really need someone that's there that knows you, or like you said, a mentor. You said that several times, that you have mentors, which is so good to help you at these different stages of life. Did you have mentors in college, or anybody that you looked up to in college that, walked with you as well?
yeah. Actually, the couple I'm gonna be helping on explain where the wife was my RD in my dorm, and her husband was the one in charge of bringing the internationals for a while.
Okay.
And there was this other girl, who she helped out the internationals. Like she would sometimes text me like,
Okay.
"Hey, can we just grab coffee?" That helped me a lot. But I think during college was that not that family was an idol, but for me it was important. But it was in the sense of the Lord saying, "Okay, like let's put this aside and like, am I enough? Like, don't think." Because in my head I had a plan, right? And like when you go to college, you're like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I'll study, and then so my dream or my plan was like I wanted to get married young. I
Hmm.
was gonna stay in the States and live there and like and serve the Lord there and like have kids and stuff. And it didn't happen. So I was even frustrated with that because I was like, Lord, I'm not asking like my longings are not.
Yeah.
But in like coming back when I came back from college, I was angry with God.
Hmm.
Like I was like, Lord, why do you give me that? Like my friends are getting married. I want to get married. I want to glorify you in that. And he told like he kind of told me in the sense like, but I didn't promise you that.
Hmm.
And so that kind of hit me, and it was I think a moment where I was kind of considering like, if the Lord didn't call me to marriage, would I be okay with it? Like, or is
Hmm.
that an idol in my life? And not like it's not that I had the wrong reasons, but what if the Lord is calling me to something else?
Hmm.
Um, and so it was really crazy because coming back again, it was like getting adapted to being back at home, uh, because I was so used to now living by myself and like doing my own things. Now it's
Hmm.
going back into like the family routine,
Hmm.
and um, the Lord put in my like group friend at church like so many youth that wanted to do something because in it's not as common here in Mexico to have outreaches with churches. And we in our church then we didn't have a youth group. Like we had teens and then from there you went with the adults, but we had like no youth group. So we would start getting together, but it was more like just to hang out. And there was like friends that were like we should do something. So I remember one Christmas, I was like, okay, like why don't we like make meals, like get together and like bring ingredients and just like make sandwiches and like buy juice boxes and take it out to the people on the streets and kind of like share with them a little bit of the gospel. So like a lot of people like added to, specifically youth, added to that. Like they brought clothes or they brought toys for the kids and stuff. So that was like it was amazing and seeing how the Lord kind of brought us together with that like same purpose and longing.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then we
Neelam,
went out.
it seems like at every stage of your life, you're always serving. Even when you were younger, well, actually, when you're younger, the guy told you you had to do it. When
Yeah.
but you kept every stage. You just found a way to give of yourself to back to for God. It
Mm,
seemed like at every single stage. Is that correct? Does that sound right?
yeah.
Okay. I wonder. You're when I hear you talk, I'm shaking my head because I'm like, yep, because I remember when I was 29 or 28, I wasn't married, and I'm just like, I mean, wanting to be married is not an odd, especially when you're a Christian, because if you're not a
Mm,
Christian, then you just kind of like live life the way you want to live it. In our Christian faith, there's a steps for marriage, for
mm,
kids, all those things. So then obviously marriage would be the next step after college. But I had graduated from college, I had taught, I had lived overseas, and I was still not married. And I was like 28, and I think by then I said, God, I started to get angry because again, everybody's getting married. I think I was the last one of my friend group. There was one
mm,
more, and she never did get married, but I was the last one of my friend group, and there was lots of them that hadn't. I didn't get married, and they were starting to have kids and everything. And so I
yeah.
remember I was like maybe 28, and I was living with my sister, and who had just got married. And I said, you know what? It doesn't matter. I'm going to be the favorite aunt, and I'm going to have lots of money, and I'm going to give it to my nieces and nephews. They're going to love me. I'm going to travel. And then probably like I think maybe 6 months later, I met my husband, and then we got
Wow,
married.
that's so cool.
I had given up on marriage because I kept saying, no, I'm pretty enough. I've lost lots of
Mm,
weight because I would always lose weight. I'm thinking maybe I'm to this or maybe I'm to that. So I would just keep
mm,
changing myself. So I knew at some point it can't be that. It's something else. So I just settled into it. And then I met my husband, and I didn't get married, Neelam, until I met him when I was 28. I didn't get married until I was 31. And I
wow.
didn't have our son, which is my only son. He'll be 18 until I was 34,
Mm,
which again is,
wow.
you understand, even in Mexican culture, that's late. That's late getting married.
Yeah.
But also in my world, it's also late because my mother was married when she was 17. My grandmother was
Oh
married when
my.
she was 13. My great grandmother was married when she was 16. So whenever
Mm.
I was 21, they're like, your eggs are getting old, right? I'm sorry, I can't do anything about it, So
Exactly.
you know, so I figure it's like what you said. It's like he doesn't promise. He never promised me either. I was in love with love. So I think God,
Mm,
it's like
yeah.
you said about the idol of family. Believe it or not, I had the idol of love. And
Mm,
it was a wrong kind of love. It wasn't the love of God. So when you said that, I said that it kind of confirmed to me as well. That's a normal stage of life, but sometimes we can get
mm,
angry at God, and then we can say, "Well, you don't love me then," or you don't
yeah.
care about me," which I know that's not true. And so I
Yeah.
guess just kind of keep going that as you're getting older, because you're in an older adult now. Has anything changed in your family that's caused you to draw closer to God or to any kind of way?
Yeah, for sure. So about 3 years ago, my mom passed away.
Okay, sorry.
And thank you. Um, she got she was diagnosed with leukemia in 2022, right after my brother's wedding. And it was like a whole year of treatment and stuff, and a year later, like she passed.
She passed away.
Yeah, it was something I didn't expect.
Yeah.
I would pray, and I would think to myself, like, Lord, you wouldn't do that to us. I don't think I could stand losing my mom, and it happened, and I'm here. I've survived, so
How did you survive, Neelam?
it's it was a process for sure. I remember the first couple months felt very like numbing in a way,
Mhm.
and I got angry, and not at God because I don't know, like her last year, my mom just dedicated her life to praying, and I really admire her for that. And my dad, like, stood by her side the whole time. And so I remember, like, it was friends, like church friends, that told her, like, it's okay to be mad at God for, or if you want to complain for why you have this illness. And I don't know if the Lord made her see it different, but she's like, I'm not mad. She's like, am I complaining? She would ask my siblings, and I was like, no, you're not. Like, she took whatever the treatment she needed to take, even if she felt bad. But most of her time that year, she spent praying. Like, she's like, prayer is powerful, and just praying for church leaders, for salvation, for the government, for friends, specific families, um, family members. And I just saw that peace in her. Um, I think she was my first example of serving. She always found a way to um, serve, even like if it meant giving up her meals for someone, or if we had, she would like be like, "Okay, guys, clean up the house because we're having people over," and we were all like, "No, it's the weekend. We just want to like sit in our pajamas." But but okay. And so that was her example to me. And so when we lost her, it was feeling that emptiness. And as I was saying, I got mad because I felt alone in the process of, like, there was, my mom was there for so many people. We were there for so many friends. And after like a month or so, nobody texted us. Um, it was my dad and my sister and I that were here by ourselves. And so we just felt like alone. And
I think that, you know, it's you were crying in the beginning. I think I am a believer in honoring the emotions that you have.
mm,
You know, and I think that, you know, God gives us a range of emotions for a reason. You know, and
mm,
even if you read the Bible clearly and correctly, God has a range of emotions as well. And so I think you as a young adult crying for the loss of your mother is normal, right? And maybe
mm,
forever, because mothers, especially even
yeah,
ones that are not good, people cry for.
mm,
But when you have a good mother, a loving mother, a mother who's always serving, a mother who's like, who's your rock, then when that disappears, then it's hard to reconcile it. Even and I think it's harder as a Christian because we
yeah,
assume, oh God, no, God, I need her forever, or I need him forever, I need
mm,
them forever. And so I think that's the I tell people, you know, especially people who are more like, I'm Pentecostal, I'm not sure what you are, but people who are Pentecostal sometimes they don't like to own their feelings, and everything is
mm,
super spiritual. Like you have to be
yeah,
strong, and I think you can be angry at God. If you read the Bible correctly, lots of people are angry at God because we're looking at it
mm,
from a human expression. And then we get over it. We move on. Just like a child, you know, you get
yeah,
mad at your parent, but then you go back and you go right back in, like, in the lap. I love you. I love you. And so
mm,
when you share such a sensitive issue about your mom, it touched me because I know by the time you get your age, life starts to happen. It just starts to.
mm,
And I think that's where we we either do like Job did. He says, "I'm going to bless the Lord if He takes everything away," or we're going to do like his
yeah,
wife said to do, curse God and die. So
yeah,
we're going to do one or the other. And I think because you are such a you seem like a very tender-hearted person, that what your mom left in you is also love, but also like a deep need to give back, which I think
yeah,
helps us as we grieve. And so I guess
mm,
my question is to you, Neelam, as you guys lost your mom, and you transition because you're the oldest, right? You're the
Mm.
oldest. As you transition without your mom, did your faith, and you can be as honest as you want to, did your faith suffer? And if it did, why? Or did it get stronger? And if it did, why?
I think maybe at first it did, because again, in my head, it's like my ideal plan of what life should be, right? And so I was like, God, it's not fair. Like, like my mom, she only got to see my brother get married. She didn't get to see us and her grandkids either. So that kind of made me angry because I was like, she of the people I know, she's one of the ones that deserve that the most. Like to see that, right? See his girl, and um, but then the Lord kind of like started healing that. It was also through other friends later on, or my mom's friends would reach out to us, and we would go get coffee. And it's like I would I would have liked that, but it's kind of also understanding that God's plans are not ours, and
They're not.
that I mean, I don't know what would have happened if he had stayed. Um, a story that he reminds me of, I forget the name in English, but a king of Israel who had was about to die, and he asked for the Lord to give him more years, and the Lord
Hezekiah.
did. Hezekiah,
Yeah.
and it's like kind of asking me like, are you sure if I had answered your prayer? Like, do you know where your mom would be now? Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, because the king ended up like separating from the
He
Lord
did. That's
within those
right.
years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny you said that because a lot of people forget that part of the story. Like, God, it's like God had sent whatever prophet it was to tell him to get his house in
Mm,
order. He was going to die, like you said. And then he asked God for more years and God gave it to him. But his latter years were actually worse than his previous
yeah.
years. And so again, it's like, Neelam, it's that understand that we believe that God is the Alpha and the Omega, meaning he
Mm,
sees all of it. So if he chooses to take, a parent or God forbid a child, because I have a child, and so I'm like
mm,
I understand what you're saying. I've lost a parent, but I think because I had so many people around, just probably like you, I was able to get through. But I was much younger. I was very young,
mm,
13, I guess 12, 13.
mm,
But I think losing a child is different. And so, but I know
mm,
people who lose children, and they're Christians, and I'm like, I don't know the love I have for a child. I don't know. And so I hear, moms always says, I hear moms and dads that they say that a mother or a father shouldn't bury their child. And so I think in
yeah.
some ways your mom was, I guess it's the opposite. A child as young as you probably shouldn't bury a parent. But I heard someone say, that's where we was like, well, who are we? We're not God. And I think
Mm,
that's where that's like what you're saying. That's the wrestle that we're not God and we don't know why, but we're human and we still have human emotions. And so then
yeah.
we have to work through that. And we do, we always do, because life happens, right? We always do.
Mm,
And so I think what you're saying is that as your mom had this surprise diagnosis and then she eventually died, that your faith was tested, but eventually you went back to what you always knew, and that is there's a song you probably don't know because it's old. It was by Marcos Witt. It's called Tu Fidelidad, like Tu
mm,
Fidelidad es grande. Anyways, your faithfulness is great, and I think
mm,
that's what we figure out as we get older, that we don't know why God does things, and sometimes we can pray and He'll change it, but sometimes we
yeah.
don't. But sometimes He won't. And I think that's where we come back to that secure place of love. And I think for me, it's encouraging because you are still very young. I mean, I could be your mother, which is so crazy to think, man, how could I? I
Yeah.
could be. I could be your mother. But you're so young, but to be so wise to be able to work through that. And like I said, I'm sure you have your days. Everybody does. Like to me, so what? It's like
Mm,
it doesn't mean that we don't love God. It just means that we're human, and
yeah.
sometimes we just want to cry and eat a cookie, and
Yeah.
just we just don't want to deal with the things sometimes. And sometimes we're stronger. And I think that what you're showing in your generation, because I think you're a millennial, is that you can go through all these seasons of life, and you can love God, and then you can go through pain in life, and then not love, well, still love him, but not trust him, but you'll come back to it. And I think for you, it's
Mm,
coming back into a heart of serving, which your mother definitely, I know she put in, 'cause you're just a
mm,
kind, I can see in your eyes, you just have
mhm.
this sweetness. And then even Delia says she's the sweetest thing. I'm like, I tell you, I'm like, oh my gosh, she is. This kind heart, this pure heart. And so I think as we wrap it up, I'm wondering, you are now at a transition where you're about to go to Mexico. I mean, Spain. How
Yeah.
did you end up there? Like, what was that?
Um, so a lot of things have happened in the past 3 years. I think I told Delia, but I was talking with my sister. Sometimes it feels like, okay, Lord, this year it's gonna be better, more chill, but a wave of like something else comes, like rushing. So last year, I was still working with horses, and we had gone to visit my brother and sister-in-law in South Carolina, and we were actually in Charleston. And then the next day we were gonna go back to like Greenville where they live. And I had like this huge pain on my side. And I was like throwing up from the pain, and so I was like, "You need to take me to the ER because I have no idea what I've got." So we ended up going there, and they like did tests, and the doctor's like, "Yeah, it looks like you have like your left ovary is like it's like really big, like it's twice the size. So I think it's an ovarian torsion." And I was like, "What is that?" And so then like everything moved so smoothly. Like this all happened in that lapse of like 12 hours. So they sent me to the hospital where they reran some tests. They made sure that it was that. Then they explained like that it needed to be surgery there, like then and there, because if not, like it could be risky. It's not a hard surgery, but it's just something that needs to be attended quickly. And so they did, like the Lord used the doctors and all. I just remember like getting like as I was walking into the is it the surgery where they
Mm-hmm.
do the
Mm-hmm.
surgery?
Operating room.
Um, yeah, the operating room. Like I just was out, and then I woke up and I was like in the recovery room, um, and the doctor said that it happens rarely, but it happens, and they have like no reason. There's no reason for it,
Mm-hmm.
and I still don't not quite 100% sure why the Lord or how the Lord is gonna use that. But anyway, so they told me like you can't ride for like 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, well then what am I gonna do? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how am I gonna work? And I had retired my lesson horses. I stayed with one of my mares that I had rescued. And I was questioning the Lord, like, Lord, what do you want me to do? Like, I'm okay. Like in that process of getting the surgery and all that, I just saw the Lord move, because during that same time, like my dad, like my siblings had called my dad and our pastor, and actually my pastor prayed with us. They called and prayed with us before I went into surgery. My sister-in-law's parents were also like praying for us, and their church group was like praying for every single thing that was about to happen as it was happening. And everything just went so smoothly. There was like
Wow.
no, yeah, like it just happened, and I just felt like the Lord saying, like, do you trust me? Like
Mm-hmm.
this, do you trust me with your life? Like wherever, whatever happens. So coming back here, I was like, okay, Lord, like, what do you want me to do? I have no idea. Like work-wise, I was starting to get into getting clients for like physical therapy, but that still wasn't like something more like self-sustained. And so, um, a friend texted me that day that I did that prayer, texted me, and she's like, "Oh, we're looking for a kindergarten English teacher. Do you want to come?" And I was like, "Sure." So then I like everything has been like, "Okay, Lord, sure, why not?" And so I got hired and I was working. I worked like a semester and a half. So in November, these friends reached out, the ones I told you about from Asbury, and they're like, hey, like I see that you do a lot of things with like the youth, and we want to invite like young adults to come help serve in Spain. And so I started like sharing it with friends around like that I knew would probably be interested, but no one really like got into it. And so these friends were like, you can also apply if you want. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna ask my dad because like he's gonna be like, no, like you just got your job, you should like focus on getting like stable financially. And so I told my dad, and he's like, yeah, go for it. And I was like, Dad,
Who's this? Who is this? Is this you,
what is
Dad?
this? And so I was like, so I applied and I was like, okay, Lord, if you're calling me to this, you have to like I'll be taking the steps of faith, but you have to be the one opening the doors. So I got interviewed, I passed, and then I was as I was still working at the school, I was like, oh God, I'm really enjoying this job. Like, are you really calling me to Spain? And then I was like, also, well, I want to talk with my bosses and tell them that I will be going for 9 months to Spain, but I want to keep the doors open. And I was praying that one morning, one Thursday morning. That day they fired me.
Well, there's your answer.
The Lord
God.
has answered my prayers that it
Oh,
was like
wow.
in like hours. And I was like, I felt sad leaving it, but I had peace. And so I was like, okay, Lord, then you are calling me to
Yeah.
Spain. So I did a training last month in Panama for me for like I have to do a missionary training.
Yeah.
So I did that, and right now I'm about to step in faith in that. I've always wanted to do missions. I just never thought I would have the opportunity, and I know my mom would be so proud of me
She, she would
and so
be.
excited.
Yeah,
And
it's
yeah,
funny you say that. I don't. I've had people die, but I always hear people say that they are, like, our spirits never die. And I don't really, I
mm,
don't understand it, but I like, she is proud of you. Like, and I
mm,
just, because again, if God is a spirit and we worship in spirit and truth and people die, their spirits are somewhere. I don't know where,
mm,
but, she is proud of you, and I think that you're talking about the clear sign that God wanted you to go. I'm like, we all wish we can get that where God would just close the door so quickly and
yeah,
it's the right thing. There's no guessing, which that's a
mhm,
blessing actually, because you know that this is where God wants me to go.
yes,
And so that anytime you're not sure, you'll know, hey, God closed the door on a job that I actually
mm.
liked. And that's why I laugh. I'm like, that doesn't happen a lot. Well, maybe not to me, but maybe to you. I don't know. So
Yeah.
I guess I have one more question actually, because
Mhm,
I know in your age range, a lot of people are like they have a different, even Christians sometimes it's a fast-paced life, it's a social media life. It's not really knowing how to trust God in everything. So if you were
mm,
speaking to your generation, which is not me, how would you tell them to learn how to trust God?
mm. Good question. I think what I would say is it's seeking his kingdom. And what does that look like in the sense of where I'm at? Like, how can I serve the Lord in that sense? Where I'm at right now, and um, listening to his voice, like trying to tune your hearing to his voice in the sense. And how can I do that is in my relationship with him, what I'm listening to, the advice I'm listening to, also kind of bring it back to the word. Because even it could even be like advice from someone who's Christian, but they don't know what you're living through or they
That's
don't see
right.
the big picture where you're at. So I would definitely say that. And don't make decisions upon your feelings.
Ooh,
Because sometimes we make decisions like that and I did that.
yeah.
You should so um and seek confirmation in his word firstly, but also I think the Lord is so personal. Like he knows how to speak to you.
Mm,
So for me, in my case, it happens a lot that whenever I have a doubt or like I'm like, Lord, if this is you, like confirm it, because it is my fear of disobeying or
mm,
thinking that it's God and it's not. Um, and so he uses like the people, but it's always like it's something just between me and him. Like
right.
I don't share it with anyone else. It's just like if it's you, then and then someone says something, I'm like, okay, and then he confirms it somewhere else. I I tell some friends I feel like Gideon because I'm like, Lord, is it you? Like, if it is, then send me another sign. Just to be sure.
I think that, yeah, there's a lot of Gideons. Oh, here, shame on me. I'm still that way. Even, and it's so bad.
Mm,
I feel so bad because God's like, He'll do things over again. I'm like, can you show me one more thing? Can and maybe it's just human nature. And that's where the faith
yes.
comes in. We just keep going. But anyways, okay. That was something I really loved how you told them your generation not to live by your feelings, which is hard because your generation particularly is like it's all about what I feel right now,
Yes,
right now,
yes.
right now, and so you can't do that because you end up in these places that are not the right places and doing the right things, and that's
Hmm.
wise, wise, wise. Okay, so here's my last. I don't want to say goodbye to you, but
Oh
here's our
yeah.
last question.
Mhm.
Neelam, what does salvation mean to you?
Salvation for me means new life. We, I think we can all say in the world we're living at, it's broken.
Yeah.
We see a lot of brokenness everywhere. And I think salvation is being renewed, being made new. That only God can do because we see it in our day to day. People try to like it's like do your best and you got this and don't give up or manifest and it's like what if it doesn't work out? What if
Mm-hmm.
it's not? And it's not a burden that you need to bear because the only one who's in control of that is God.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I mean I think it's renewal and new
Oh,
life.
so good.
Mm,
Neelam, it has been a pleasure and a
mm.
refreshing to interview you today. And I know that God's going to use you in great ways. And I know one day, well, I hope one day you get married. And if you do, send me a picture. I love to
I
see that handsome
will.
young man. Thank you,
Okay.
Neelam. I'll see you
No, thank
soon.
you. See you.